Straight up, fans, I am so old I've seen WWE go through some serious in-ring changes throughout my life. When I was a kid, it was the don't do much but look huge period, and as I got a bit older, it became more technical before going all out brawling with the Attitude Era. Nowadays, it's arguably more athletic and impressive than it ever has been. You know why all these shifts have happened? Because of specific wrestlers. Think of that. It's possible for one guy to come along and have such an impact that the WWE's in-ring style begins to evolve. I don't know about you, but that's pretty impressive and is something I'd go around shouting into people's faces with a megaphone. I would have earned that right. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 10 wrestlers who changed WWE's in-ring style. Number 10, Hulk Hogan. Whether you thought he was good or whether you didn't care much for what the Hulkster brought to the table, it's hard to deny he didn't seriously influence WWE's in-ring style when he was ruling the roost. Before Hogan, the focus was very much on WWE matches having a fight feel, hence why the likes of Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales reigned supreme. They knew how to put on a bout that looked and felt like a legit contest, and that's where the entertainment sprung up from. Then the Immortal One arrived and everything changed. Targeting a more family audience and a much brighter approach to production, storytelling became front and centre for the WWE, or in this sense, the ongoing narrative of Hogan being beaten from bell to bell before finding that courage to rally back deep down in his soul. To do this, of course, he needed the fans' support, which when at a fever pitch, would trigger his hulking up routine, which in essence was just a no-sell power spot to vanquish his foes. Worked though. And worked for years. Number 9, Randy Savage. When all this Hogan stuff was going on, however, there was a man who was making a niche all of his own, and that man was Randy Savage. While Hulk would dance and pose at the top of the card, the Macho Man was quietly introducing a more cerebral and realistic style, one that would underline Savage for both his athleticism and preparation. A fan of meticulously crafting his matches out beforehand, even his classic with Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3 was rehearsed prior to the event. Randy was a stickler in leaving no room for error. This was quite a big change during a time where a lot of wrestlers just wanted to call it on the fly once in the ring. While this still does happen today, the majority of bouts are steered by road agents who meet with talents hours before go time, and a large reason for all that is Randy Savage and what Randy Savage achieved. He was a pioneer and he was a hero, and I loved him for it. Number 8, Bret Hart. Bret Hart made you believe, even if just for a moment, that pro wrestling was real. He did this thanks to a style that was more akin to art than anything else, often picking a body part and wearing it out so it seemed like he always had one eye on getting the win. A great example of this was at Survivor Series 1995, where Bret systematically took apart Diesel's leg in order to negate the height advantage he had, much like somebody would have done in an actual fight. It made sense, it was logical, and it made you root for Bret in a way that's hard to describe. Never the biggest guy in the world, it was still utterly plausible to buy into the fact he could defeat anyone, all thanks to how he approached the situation. There's a reason he's an inspiration to so many today, and his actions between the ropes are part of that. Number 7, Shawn Michaels. You think he's cute, you know he's sexy, he's got the looks, and they drive girls wild. Plus, he utterly transformed WWE's in-ring product. Never says that in his entrance theme, does it? But he did, and he did so with his athletic, big bumping style long before that was considered the norm, hurling himself around as if hurling yourself around was about to be made illegal. Shawn Michaels also set the bar for how a wrestler should sell, genuinely making you think he was in real pain. HBK was the master at portraying agony just by his facial reactions, making most other people on the roster look silly when they couldn't do the same. Michaels was also one of the first baby faces to show a meaner side. Even at In Your House Rage in the Cage, Shawn got a right kick out trying to rip Owen Hart's hair right off his head. That's a trend we still see today. A lot of that could be traced back to the Heartbreak Kid. Number 6, Steve Austin. Steve Austin could and did do it all throughout his career. A fantastic all-rounder before his life-threatening neck injury, Stone Cold would adapt to his situation by modifying that to a more intense, brawling approach once he was cleared to get back in the ring. Reducing his bumps and focusing more on throwing a hell of a lot of punches, Austin drafted the blueprint for the Attitude Era, and it was one the fans lapped up in droves. His balls-to-the-wall style made him seem like a legit badass, and people simply couldn't get enough of it. Austin was also a big advocate of scrapping through the crowd as well, which just added an unpredictable nature to what he might do. While you may have been able to assume a few things when it came to the rattlesnake, he was the master of coming up with something different. He was also, in many ways, one of the first people to introduce the kick out of all the finishers matchup. It may have died a death today, but back then it was fantastic, and no one did it better than Stone Cold. Number 5, Mick Foley. Mick Foley, or Cactus Jack, popularized hardcore wrestling in the mainstream. Now, I'm sure there's someone else you may want to give that nod to, but it's just not true. The honor is Foley's, and he deserves all the credit in the world. Still gifted mechanically, Mick realised he was never going to be an Arn Anderson or Ric Flair, so went in a far more brutal direction. Having jaw-dropping matches against the likes of Vader and Sting during his WCW days, it opened the eyes to thousands of fans who had never seen anything like it. And he took this to a whole other level when he arrived in the WWE. There are far too many to list off here, but the most obvious, of course, is his infamous Hell in a Cell epic he had with The Undertaker at King of the Ring 1998. His terrifying falls both from and through the cage hit a nerve with everyone that considered themselves a pro wrestling fan. From this moment on, such people tried and failed to top it. That's why we have Shane McMahon hurling himself off anything he can, because Mick Foley did, and it was awesome. And don't forget too that Foley pretty much introduced barbed wire, thumbtacks and fire to the WWE. Being first is always impressive. Number 4, John Cena. John Cena is severely underrated when it comes to being an in-ring performer. Having countless great matches with numerous opponents over the years, he has been involved in some classics and deserves far more credit than he gets. With that said, it is true he also shifted what was expected when in a WWE ring. Following on from the likes of Steve Austin and The Rock, Cena was more of a Hogan-esque babyface, getting beaten down for a long time before making his triumphant comeback. You can't say it didn't work, because it absolutely did, but it did mean the WWE style moved back to an older feel as opposed to find a completely new one. When it comes to pro wrestling though, what's old can always become new again, and this is why kids love Cena so much. He's their Hogan, just as Hogan was your Hogan. So think about that next time you go to slag him off. He has his place. Number 3, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Neither CM Punk or Daniel Bryan were meant to have top-level success in WWE, and that's why they're coming in at a joint entry here, because they both essentially helped achieve the same thing. Innovators and followers of the Puro Resu style that ran riot in Ring of Honor in the early 2000s, both men brought a knowledge of submission grappling to both their pre- and post-WWE days. While they had to adapt it for Vince McMahon's far more conservative landscape, Punk and Bryan found a way to make it work, and in doing so inspired countless others to try and do the same. The pair even managed to merge this with what WWE fans were expecting, namely signature spots and moves that always ran the risk of outstaying their welcome. But they never did here, mostly because Bryan and Punk knew how to get the most out of them. Without these two, the WWE may be a very different place indeed today. Number 2, Paige. Throughout 2013 and 2014, Paige and Emma were having matches that were both believable and extremely non-diva as they fought for the newly introduced NXT's Women's Championship. While today that doesn't sound like anything too exciting, the fact it was happening at a time where women were told not to wrestle this way was massive. Most ladies on the main roster were restricted to 2-minute matches and no character development whatsoever. Here though, stories were being told and individual styles shining through, allowing 2 women to partake in something that felt like a real contest. Because, you know, this is wrestling. Even Charlotte has credited Paige with opening the door that herself, Bayley, Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch have now smashed through. If that's not a change, I don't know what is. Number 1, Shinsuke Nakamura. The concept of strong style had made its way to the WWE long before Shinsuke Nakamura made his NXT debut. When the king arrives, it's only then when you start to truly understand. It would be like eating at McDonald's before having a gourmet burger somewhere else. All of a sudden, your eyes are truly open. This is basically what happened when Nakamura went toe-to-toe with Sami Zayn. Both men kicking the shit out of each other in one hell of a stiff match. Tough punches, knee strikes to the face, shots to the back. Everything looked like it hurt. Mostly because it really hurt. This was essentially Nakamura bringing a little slice of New Japan to the WWE, and it's a style that so many performers now try to work in, even if it's not at this level. It's also the approach in modern day wrestling, and Nakamura is a huge part of that reason, so he deserves a mention. And that's why we've mentioned him. It all makes sense. Know of any other wrestlers that changed WWE style? Let us know in the comments below, and then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can even come tell me on Twitter at SimonMiller316. I'm Simon from What Culture, and I'm going to chat to you again soon.